Hi friends, I'm Tammy from the Cookie Drawer, and today we're going to do a little bit of baking. I have my oven back here preheating, and I have a bunch of bananas that we need to use up. So I thought I would make banana bread. I'm going to make 2 loaves because I have enough bananas for that. And I am just using a regular recipe from my trusty cookbook, Pillsbury cookbook. I got this cookbook when I was just a girl. And back when I was a girl, I used to collect things for when eventually I would have my own house. And so this cookbook is probably 45 at least years old. And I believe my grandmother bought it for me, perhaps my great-grandmother. I got it for Christmas one year. So it is a well-used, well-loved cookbook. If you can see, there are stains in it, like it's, but we're gonna make banana bread out of it because it makes really good banana bread. And that is my tip to all of you guys, especially if you're a new cook, and get a trusty cookbook. Don't try to mess around with fancy things when you're first learning how to do stuff. Just get a basic cookbook that you know has good tried and true recipes. This one is one of them. There's a Betty Crocker cookbook. There's a Better Homes and Gardens that is the same thing. These are spiral bound, heavy duty, just basic cookbooks. They're worth getting, just so you know. Okay, I am gonna double my recipe, like I said, because I have extra bananas. And the first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna mash up these bananas in my bowl. See, they're falling apart. You really do want your bananas to be very well ripened, right? So they've got lots of spots on them. They're a little mushy to eat, but they're great in banana bread. I am going to make 2 different kinds today. Even though I'm gonna make the basic batter together, I'm going to make one of them regular, and I'm gonna put chocolate chips in one of them. And then one of these banana breads is gonna get put in our freezer. My husband and I will, enjoy one of them since I'm making them today, and he would be very sad if he didn't have any banana bread. But one of them I'm gonna put aside and save for when my sister's gonna be coming and visiting me in a few weeks. So I'm gonna throw that in the freezer, and it will be lovely, and I won't have to do any baking or cooking. It'll already be done for me. So thinking ahead here. So I've got these bananas. I'm just putting them in here. We're gonna get them all mashed up really quick. Okay, I've brought you down so that hopefully you can see these now, and we're just gonna mash them. Nothing fancy smancy, just mashing them with a fork. Now you can make this if you want to in a mixer, but I never do. I find it just as easy to do this by hand. I've been doing this for many years by hand, so I think it works out great. All right, these are mashed up enough. We don't need to make them into goo. It is kind of gooey, but this works out great. The next ingredient I'm gonna put in here is sugar. We're gonna use 2 cups of sugar in this. I am just using regular cane sugar. You can use plain white sugar. You could actually probably substitute things like coconut sugar, but white sugar is what I use. Cane sugar is what I'm using today. Okay, I am going to mix that sugar in with the bananas. So this is kind of similar to when you see recipes that tell you to cream the sugar and butter together. We're gonna add the butter in here too in a second. But you can see that when I put the sugar in with the bananas, let me show you, that it really loosens up those bananas, right? They look much more liquidy than they did. All right, the next ingredient I'm gonna add is butter. I have 1 cup or 2 sticks of softened butter. You wanna make sure your butter is at room temperature because this isn't gonna work as well with cold butter. This is not the kind of recipe like a biscuit or something like that. Or pie crust, you're gonna want cold. For this recipe, you want room temperature butter. So we're gonna put that in and we're just gonna mix that around, same as we did with the sugar. It's only gonna take a second. And this is really an easy recipe. It comes together quickly, and it does take a bit to cook. If you're cooking your recipe in a metal pan, you're gonna wanna set the temperature for 350, or I believe also for a ceramic pan. But I have glass pans, glass baking pans. So I've got this one here, which is a regular Pyrex standard size pan. And I have this one because I don't have things that match. Sometimes I do, but today I don't. I believe I probably got this at a garage sale. But it is, even though it looks opaque, it looks white here, it's actually glass. It's made of glass. So for these pans, because they're glass, I'm gonna set my oven for 325 because the glass is gonna make it cook a little bit quicker, and I wanna make sure that the inside of my bread cooks, not just the outside. I don't want the outside burned. So that's what we're gonna do. Okay, I've got my butter in here. Now you're gonna see the butter isn't gonna be completely like, look, this is what the butter looks like. It's gonna have little chunks of butter in it. It's okay. It's all okay. It's gonna melt in there. It's still gonna be delicious. Trust me, it's gonna be perfectly fine. Okay. The next thing, we're gonna keep adding wet ingredients before we get to our flour. And so the next ingredient that I'm gonna add is a quarter cup, or no, I'm gonna add a half cup because we're doubling, right? Half a cup of milk. And I'll put this recipe in the description box below. I'll put for a single loaf, and then you can decide if you're gonna double it or not. But today I'm doubling it. So I've got a half a cup of milk going in. Just like that. I'm also gonna add a teaspoon, I'm gonna double it and add 2 teaspoons of vanilla. I like to buy pure vanilla extract. I don't like to buy the imitation vanilla extract. I think that this has a better flavor. You can also use vanilla bean paste, which is also delicious and really nice, but this is what I have. And so I'm just gonna add 2 teaspoons of vanilla. It smells great already. And then I'm gonna add 4 eggs, that's the double. So for a single batch, you're gonna use 2 eggs. I'm gonna use 4. And we're gonna get that all mixed together before we add in the dry ingredients, which is gonna be the flour and the other dry ingredients, the soda, baking soda and salt. So did you guys when you were growing up, did you collect things for when you were gonna have a house of your own eventually someday? Or was that something you waited till you actually had a house? It was just a thing back in the day. We used to call it hope chests. I mean, I didn't literally have a chest. I suppose some people probably did. I did not. But that's what we used to call it. And I had all kinds of things collected in there. I had some baking things. I think I had some dishes and cups and, whatever along the line that I had gathered up for myself. So I had a few things when I started a home. Of course, I didn't have everything. But this comes from back in the day, years and years ago. That would have been a common practice for young girls to start putting things together in their hope chest. And they often had literal chests because that was how they stored their clothes and things before we had our modern closets and everything. A lot of times bedding would have been stored in there. They didn't have a lot of cupboard space like we have today, like linen closets and all of that. They didn't always have those back in the day. In fact, my grandmother's house was a very old house from the early 1800s, mid 1800s, somewhere in there. And in her upstairs, There were 2 little closets up there, but not like today's closets where you have all kinds of room to put stuff in. So they would have used something like what's called a wardrobe, maybe, if they wanted to hang their clothes, or just pegs on the wall. So it's very interesting when you go into older houses. They look really cool. Okay, this is all mixed together. I'll pull this up so hopefully you can see that. It's all liquid now, very liquidy. Everything's in here. I'm just using a fork, y'all. I'm not using anything fancy here. Okay, the next thing I'm gonna put in is 2 cups of flour. No, I'm gonna put 4 cups in because I'm doubling my recipe. So let me get started with that. Now, technically, if you're going to measure flour accurately, you're going to take this flour out. You are going to make it nice and fluffy, maybe sift it, and you are going to use a spoon, and you're going to spoon it in, and use a knife, and you're going to flatten it out. I'm not going to do any of that because I don't know. I never have, and that's just me. So I am just doing this. This is not what you're supposed to do, just so you know. But it's okay, it works. I've not, very few things are that fussy that it's gonna make that much of a difference. It does though, like if you're really gonna be accurate, you're gonna weigh your flour. And so 4 cups of, I don't know what 4 cups of flour is gonna weigh. That could be Googled probably. But that would be the more accurate way to make sure that you're not putting too much flour in and you're not, you know, doing things that the recipe doesn't like. But, you know, we're just doing what we're doing. I've done this like this for years. Okay. The next thing I'm going to put in before I get all of my flour incorporated, I am going to put in my baking soda and my salt. So I just keep I put my baking soda, I decant it into a quart jar, and I do that because I don't like those boxes. They fall apart. So this is how I'm doing it. I'm gonna need 2 teaspoons of baking soda. So I need to get another teaspoon. That's a half. Let's see if I have a teaspoon in here that's clean. I do. All right, so I'm gonna need 2 teaspoons because for 1 loaf it's 1. So we're gonna put 2 teaspoons of baking soda. And I'm gonna put 1 full teaspoon of salt because for 1 loaf it calls for half a teaspoon of salt. You do not want to forget salt in your baked goods, people. This is gonna help it's gonna help with the flavor. Otherwise, it's probably gonna taste really, really bland. And it's not that much salt, but it really makes a difference. So it's not like when you're cooking, you can omit salt in recipes easy enough. But when you're baking, you kind of really want to include it. So I'm just gonna mix all this together. And I'm not gonna over mix it. You don't wanna mix this so that like it's, you know, that it's been, you know, a lot of air incorporated in it, or that, you know, everything is not gonna be smooth. And you don't want it to be, because if you mix it too much, you're gonna have a very tough bread, and nobody wants that. So let's get this mixed up. And then the next thing I need to do is spray my pans and get them ready for baking. My oven has come up to temperature. I heard it a minute ago. It went off. So you want to make sure everything is incorporated, right? Like I don't want to like have loose egg in here or something like that. I want everything to be incorporated, but I don't want it to be, like I said, over mixed. And I think if you mix it till you don't see the flour anymore, you don't see the separate egg, you know, that kind of thing. You are gonna see clumps of butter in here because remember, our butter wasn't creamed in here. We didn't cream our butter and our sugar together. We just incorporated it in. And I find that this works really great, and it avoids me having to worry about creaming something, getting out my mixer. because I don't like to add extra dirty dishes. So that's part of why I do it this way. Plus this, you know, when my kids were little, I would sometimes get up in the mornings and make stuff, and I didn't want to make a lot of noise. So I would do stuff by hand. But you can absolutely use a mixer. You can use a hand mixer for this, or you can put it in your bigger mixer if you want to. It still works. So these are just incorporated. You can see this is what our batter looks like. And so now we're just gonna pour it in the pans. So let me get my pans prepared. I am gonna use just spray oil in my pans. You could do, actually, you know what I'm gonna do? I have a little bit of butter left on my butter wrapper. So I'm just gonna use, I think I'm gonna use that. And you can just do this, just butter the inside. So see, I'm just buttering this. And this keeps you don't want your dough to stick. You wanna be able to get your bread out once it's cooked. Pay attention when you are doing your pans, for sure that you're getting down in these little corners, because I have found over the years, that's the part that I struggle with, where it's like everything will come out of the pan and then one of the corners will stick on me. So you wanna make sure you've got that fully buttered or greased. This is greased, or this is butter, but you could use oil as well. So let's see if I have another, let me grab my other one here, and we'll use, there's not as much on this one, but there we go. I didn't have to go get oil after all. And the butter is actually gonna put a better flavor probably on the outside of my loaf, but I'm not sure you would notice it a ton. So once you have your pans all buttered, I am going to make, as I said, I'm gonna make 2 loaves. So the first loaf, I'm gonna go ahead and put, I have 2 different sizes of pans, you'll see, as you can see here, right? So let me show you. I've got this size pan, and I've got this size pan. They're a little bit different in size, right? One is a little bit taller and a little bit narrower than the other. So I'm gonna use this wider one for my plain bread. No, I'm not. I'm gonna use the narrower one for my plain bread. And I'm gonna use the wider one with the chocolate chips in it. And the reason I want to do that is because I want those chips really spread out in my bread, because they're gonna taste really good. So you wanna fill your pan about 2/3, a little more than 2/3 full. I'm not gonna just divide this in 2, although it will probably divide in 2. So let's see what we have here. Let's get this in here and get it started. We're gonna fill that first pan. So we wanna go a little, 2/3 is gonna be a little more than half full. Let's see where we're at here. We don't wanna have so much that we can't get it cooked in time, but we wanna have enough. All right, that's probably about 2/3 full. Now, if you're just making 1 loaf, you're just obviously gonna put all of the batter in 1 pan. But I think, well, maybe a little more. And I'm gonna need a spatula to get some of this out, but all right, I think that's good. So that's loaf number 1. We're gonna set that aside. And then for loaf number 2, we're gonna add some chocolate chips to it. So you can measure chocolate chips. You're probably gonna put, I don't know, maybe a cup and a half, something like that. I am going to just measure with my heart because it's chocolate. Hang on. Okay, friends, here's our bread. I'm gonna pull it out of the oven. Let me turn the oven off. Both of them are coming in at about 201 degrees at this point. So they are done all the way through. Look at that, beautiful, beautiful bread. All right, we're gonna let this cool. I'm gonna pull it out of the oven. We'll let it cool on the counter. And then when it's totally cool, we'll cut it open. We'll try a piece. My husband wants to have half of it and half of it. So I'm gonna cut the the bread in half, each one of them, and we're gonna freeze half of each of these loaves for later, and we will keep half of each for now. But here we are. Look at that. Beautiful bread. Okay, our bread has cooled finally, and we have two really nice loaves. The mister has already had some of this one, but you can see inside, you can see all the chocolate chips all throughout. Let's cut the other one open and see what that looks like. There we go. Look at that. All cooked through. Isn't it beautiful? All right, I am gonna take this. We're gonna cut each loaf in half. I'm gonna freeze half of it for later. And then the mister and I will have our bread for throughout the week or a couple weeks, however long it takes. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thank you for joining me today on the Cookie Drawer. We'll see you next time. Bye. Finally getting a break. Cheers. That's good banana bread.